Hi, Tony Selzer here. Welcome to the Experience Economy. And man, I've got a great show today. I'm really excited. We have one of the best experts on content creation and strategy for growth in your business. How to make what you know how to do, what you've spent 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 hours on in mastering, and then turn that into a vehicle that can drive and grow your business. And we're here today to talk about how we're moving from really a products and services company. I've got Bryan Heathman with Made for Success. We're going to talk about how he's helping businesses understand how content is part of that experience, how this whole social media exchange has really changed the way we go to market. As I say that, Bryan, how did you start this business? What made you come up with the idea?
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny, and this is it's an interesting story. So I had just sold a company and was trying to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. I'm in my
Yeah.
mid 40s, trying
Mhm.
to sort through it, and came across this idea to license. In this is 2005 to
Yeah.
license keynote speeches from professional speakers.
Right.
So myself and another well-known speaker, we met in my backyard,
Mhm.
2005 in the summer, and we literally started dialing for dollars, and we called the top 100 speakers in the world.
Yeah.
And many of these people were, New York Times best-selling authors, CEOs, fighter pilots. I mean, people that are pretty accomplished, and we licensed the rights to
Mhm.
produce audio CDs of their keynote speeches,
Okay.
compiled those into collections, and then I literally drove 15 minutes away from where I live down to
Yeah.
Costco's headquarters
Okay.
with finished product in hand and sold in these series of audio CDs. And so we literally had an overnight success. We put things in Costco, we put it into the 12 stores to do the tests to see how these things were selling. The sell through tests came through successfully, and they went to a nationwide rollout, actually a global rollout for all 400 stores at that time,
Yeah.
and literally an overnight success. So then the next thing you know, we're sending out fat royalty checks
Mhm.
to all these different speakers and
Right.
authors. So
And so
made for
they're starting to think
success.
of this in a whole new way. Like, hey, maybe this content creation is not only something I need to be spending my time on strategically, it's a whole nother revenue stream. It might be the revenue stream. Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And so if you're a professional speaker, I speak, therefore I am, right?
Hmm.
That's your headspace.
Hmm.
And so creating this alternate revenue stream for them became big. Now, in 2008, this is where it gets interesting. Costco
Hmm.
got out of the physical CD business,
Yeah.
right? Because they were obsolete.
Right.
So we took the library, we digitized it, we sent it over to Audible. Audible is a audiobook company owned by Amazon that currently has dominant market share. Let's call it
Hmm.
70 plus percent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, in the first year that we put that catalog up there, we became one of their top 10 publishers,
Right.
right? So this is kind of ironic. I mean, so
Well, I mean, but you know what? You say that, right? But there's so many things there that I think happened that you would call an accident, but I would call really just smart chess play in understanding how there are signals in the market that make other signals happen, right? And
Mhm.
and so when you get three signals ahead, like you did, of understanding where the business was going, like I liken this story back to like, as soon as Blockbuster saw CDs in their store, they should have known it was the beginning of the end, right? Because as soon as content became digitized, there was no need ever again to go to a store to buy things, right? And that's what happened with you in Costco. And so that those signals happened, and that's what you got ahead of, and that's why your business became not only plausible but successful, right? And that's
Mhm.
so as you think about that now, what are the signals that small businesses are paying attention to on why content's going to be more important, an integral strategy of where they go?
Well, yeah, no, it's a great question. When you think about content, I mean, I'm in the book publishing business.
Hmm.
Myself, I've written two books. One book is about how to convert more visitors on your website into paying customers. And then the other book, it's called Number One Bestseller. It's about how to run a book marketing campaign for an author, because I've given a lot of thought about effective marketing campaigns. But in the content development space,
Hmm.
There's a big signal going on right now. We just happened to see it in the fourth quarter of 2020, and we
Okay.
did a pivot. So
Okay.
the pivot that we did was focusing all of our energies on getting books sold in brick and mortar stores like Barnes and Noble, independent
Okay.
bookstores. But COVID happened, right? All the
Yep.
bookstores shut down, and we
Uh-huh.
saw over 75% of our revenues coming from one company,
What was that?
Amazon.
Wow.
Okay. So
Yeah.
when you think about physical books, ebooks, and audiobooks, Amazon has dominant market share in all three of those categories. And those are the three ways that we make
Well,
money in.
they bought Audible, right? Which made them that got them number one in the digital space for
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So,
so go
so,
ahead.
so we did this pivot where we focused all of our energies on Amazon optimization. Now, what does that mean? So, Amazon's a, multi-hundred billion dollar, place where people are buying things. And what does it take for a product listing to be successful on Amazon? Well, that the answer to that question is quite nuanced, right?
It
And we
is.
spent a good solid 6 months working up a plan to do that. And we created a new publishing product called the Amazon Optimized Publishing Program. So
Yeah.
it's designed specifically to leverage all the tools that Amazon has to offer to sell products, but we're
Not
managing
only
it.
the tools, but the rules, right? Because Amazon has this entire algorithm that determines on whether or not you become a bestseller, right?
That's right.
And it's in a time value window,
Hmm.
right? So if you win in that time value window,
Hmm.
which could be like controlled if you're a smart marketer, like your system builds, you can drive yourself to be a bestseller and almost trick the algorithm to elevate you up to that level so it starts to market you that way and almost self-fulfill you as that bestseller. Is that kind of how it works?
That's exactly it. You start this snowball of momentum statistically
Mhm.
happening on Amazon, and then success begets success.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the design. That's the
Well,
at the highest level what that
I mean,
system is designed to do.
it's part of what we try to get our clients to understand. And I think this is that these systems that people are on are not that old. So assuming that they're 100% democratic or they're 100% autocratic or they're 100% can't be tricked or fooled or even controlled and driven, right? Is a failed assumption, right? I mean, a lot of times I know this from my dev background, or not me as a developer managing and hiring development teams,
Yep.
that we build layers of logic on top of other layers, and you don't have time to go back to fix the assumptions you made 6 months ago, let alone 4 to 5 years ago. And what happens is that in our world we call it technology debt, right? People get in it and then they can't afford to go back and fix it. But
Yeah.
basically what that's where bringing in an expert like you that understands the internal pinnings of the largest marketplace in the world, gets that done, right? And I just think that's one of those things that a lot of our listeners and viewers need to hear. It's like, go find somebody that knows the rules of the game to optimize for that game before you spend that 6 to 12 months trying to figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
Isn't that
And
what you try to help people do?
yeah, that's exactly right. So let's talk about it, Tony, for a second, because this is raises some interesting questions.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you've invested in a beautiful website.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you got your blog, you got your podcast, you've got all the bells and whistles. Yet your e-commerce revenues maybe are tapering off,
Yeah.
or um, you're seeing more e-commerce being transacted on Amazon versus on your own website. You
Yep.
talked about technology debt. Well, if
Mm-hmm.
I'm invested for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on my website,
Mm-hmm.
yet I'm seeing the dynamics move towards a retailer like Amazon or Walmart or what other platform is relevant in your particular industry. At what point does it make sense to start to taper off your investment on e-commerce?
Yeah.
I don't know. And you're talking to a guy. I mean, I literally wrote a book about optimizing your website
Mm-hmm.
for e-commerce conversion, right? So why would I be talking about that, right? So
Well, what could have moved those signals, right? Like, could it be Alexa purchases are driving more through Amazon? Could it be, someone's figured out a larger marketplace has figured out how to optimize for the keyword that you're going after. And now that it's easier to hit that keyword than it is to go back to your site, right? There's a lot of those things that can be analyzed, looked at, but part of what you really have to, like, in our world, this is kind of in our cushion, is like, what is the ideal customer really trying to do? What are the jobs to be done around that customer? And how are they using the web? How are they using search? How are they using your site? And really backing, figuring out if there's more value through one of those channels you can create, right? I think that's part of what we get so into, the what place did they buy it from, instead of, trying to go back to how is the user trying to use this and do this job. Do you see that in your space?
yeah, well, just think about it. Just think about your own behavior for a minute. So at the time that we're recording this episode,
Mm-hmm.
it's right before the Christmas holidays. So what did I do as a husband and a dad? Well, I go online and I start buying my Christmas presents, right? All
Yep.
right. So I thought, okay, well, I've got to find I've got a friend who's got a young son and I wanted to get him an archery set. So I go on Google, I'm doing my search. I then go on Amazon and I do my search. And so I'm looking at my own buying behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
I hit a company's website that actually had a great product,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't want to fill out all their information, give them all my credit card stuff and get on their email list and get off their email list and all that. So I just went over and bought it from Amazon.
Yep.
So, so
Because it's
that,
already there.
yeah. So there's one customer experience. Now, I did buy some like some jewelry for my wife that was customized, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully she won't listen to this before the holidays, right? Um, but that type of thing is tougher to find on Amazon. So I did go over to Etsy and I did some shopping over there. So we've got access to all these tools, but I think it's important based on what you're selling and what tools are available and what clearinghouses are available to ultimately scale your business.
Well, and this kind of is a really good way to just kind of come back to, like, the mission of what the show is about, right? The failed, every time we're having a conversation with our clients, about where they bought and why, right? Like, especially like, well, our e-commerce sales is down and our store sales are down, or vice versa. Our direct is not as strong as our indirect was. Our channel partners seem to be beating us, versus, what it really comes down to is, like, all these are mechanisms that work together to create an experience for the user, right?
Yeah.
Your resellers are part of your experience. Your website, your e-commerce is part of your experience. Amazon is part of your experience, whether you like it or not, right? That's just another distribution medium. And if Amazon's beating you, it's because there's not enough value at your e-commerce platform comparatively to sign up for another credit card to hold and have my name, information, and access on that site. They're beating you in that experience,
Mm-hmm.
which means, the website that I have has to deliver that much more value as an experience, right? Or the combination of value of being a member with said company versus being a member to Prime or Amazon has
Right.
to be as valuable comparatively to that company. And that means you're not just thinking about, web, you're not thinking about just mobile, you're not thinking about in-store, you're thinking about ubiquitous experiences delivered. And that's where we try to get our clients to understand. Like, I'm going to riff for a second, just bear with me.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the pandemic for a second. 28%, 25% of revenue was coming through the mobile app of Starbucks
Hmm.
pre-pandemic. We're now seeing stores that are more than 50, close to 70% mobile purchase and, pickup through in store. Okay, so here's an industry that almost was 75% has got flipped upside down to be delivered mobile to store, right? Or web to store. If I'm sure I'm not, I'm There's not a lot of people buying it through the website, but I'm sure people do go in order because they can check off.
Sure.
But that is because the experience, the buyer doesn't think of it any differently other than getting their Starbucks coffee.
Right.
It's just their experience got moved, and the technology they engage with changed. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that Starbucks is a perfect example
Mm-hmm.
of how things have changed dramatically to change an entire industry. Um, so, I think often about companies that have multi-channel engagement
Mm-hmm.
strategies.
Sure.
So they'll have a website where they're doing business. They'll have trade shows where they're doing business. They'll have,
Mm-hmm.
retail storefronts where they're doing business, and they're very invested in all those channels.
Right.
Yep. And from a content perspective, I look at the book as being a almost like a pivotal piece to that equation.
It's a point of the spear.
It's a point of the spear. That
Yep.
Yeah. So authors get a free pass.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing about a book. An author gets a free pass to the media, whether it's local media or national media.
Mm-hmm.
So journalists, when they're out searching for experts, they will reach for an author of a book, especially an author of a best-selling book, to have an interview where you can get then on talk about your given expertise. It's
Mm-hmm.
a it's the perfect tip of the spear
Well,
for a
I
business
would
owner.
I would argue it's even more than that, right? It's you think about the multi-channel example that you just gave, right? It the when most people don't buy from people they think are smarter than them, they buy from people that believe what they believe, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And so when you state what you believe the world is in a content strategy, which I would argue a book is an extension of, and that becomes your social strategy, that becomes your website content, that becomes what you do push to text and mobile, that becomes all these this entire experience, coming back to that you're creating for your customers. The book is just the platform, right? And then all the spin the shoots are off from that. That's how you get people to understand whether you're not in my tribe or not, whether Amazon is your buyer, your seller, or we are. You with me? And that's how you start to get that content strategy is what really explains. I think Simon Sinek calls it the why of the organization, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And that's what you're helping people do. You're helping them get to that, understand how to utilize that through your medium, and then leverage it through others. I mean, that's what I think is brilliant about the platform you built for these organizations. Does
yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it totally makes sense. In fact, one of the things that, pops up in the back of my mind that it would be interesting to talk about is social media.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that for a minute. You mentioned that you've got 20,000 followers on LinkedIn, which is a massive following. I've only got about 7,000 on LinkedIn, and a lower number than that on Facebook. But
Sure.
we've all, especially for those of us with a little bit of gray at the temples, we've all gone through the evolution of the whole social media platforms.
Right.
I'm active on a couple platforms, but I haven't even picked up and done Snapchat or TikTok, or
Yep.
I'm even off Instagram, and my kids think
Right.
I'm crazy for that, right?
Right.
But as you think about social media and you're looking for signals
Mm-hmm.
within that space, what are you seeing? I mean, all of us that run businesses, we're thinking about, well, how much money should I be spending on social media? Does it really work? Of course, me, a guy who wrote a book called Conversion Marketing, I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking, does it convert? Right. So that's
Yeah.
the math that I'm running every time I look at social media. But I'd be curious what, you
Yeah,
know,
well, yes, it does. No, it doesn't. The channel has to meet the mission, right? And I would only say, as somebody with more gray hair than you, that I'm we've only leveraged it because we have to scientifically for the companies that we take to market. So we have a Facebook group campaign that has generated 190 leads in the last 2 months for one of our clients, and these are high
what?
quality leads. Yeah, yeah,
190? No, that's
190.
yeah,
And,
for a
and,
guy
and
who does this.
cost of acquisition, their lead cost is 1/3 of what the B2B lead cost average is right now,
Huh.
right? So
Wow.
we have a TikTok experiment that we're running right now, and I'm saying experiment because we're not sure whether it's going to work. Our traffic is up, our conversion hasn't happened, right? Traffic's easy, conversion's hard. You know this. I mean, as a guy who wrote the book, right? So what I try to look at when we're doing channel identification, whether it's TikTok, we're looking at it. I have a strategy right now. There's two organizations we're working on. Have you heard of Current? CURRNT?
Yeah.
Uh, Really cool platform. I'm getting business off of Current because I'm getting on these boards to do these focus groups on some of the things that I'm an expert on. I'm interacting with all these other people that have a strong social following in the space that we're experts in, and we're passing business back and forth. It's indirect, right? But it's like, hey, that would be a great introduction for me. Who do you know? And so I'm getting paid to find business, right? And now, is that social? Or is that a channel? I would call it a channel. I mean, it's where I'm spending strategic time. I'm creating content. It's being shared. It's being followed.
I'm gonna jot that down. Honestly, I mean that
Well,
actually
and,
sounds.
and that's my point. Is like social is just that. It's just mediums. There's a lot of magazines out there to advertise in back in the day when you and I first got into this. There, like, you had to pick your list. You had to pick your target, and then you try to dominate that. So if TikTok is where your user is and it fits your mission, then that's where you got to make a content strategy like you do with your books, and really say, this is what we're committed to. We're going to find our tribe here, and we're going to figure out how to connect.
Yeah.
And we're going to use scientific data to decide what works and what doesn't. I mean, the more we get into this, the less I know. That is the only thing I know for sure. You with me?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll give you one more that the viewers would might get a kick out of. There's a new company just raised, I want to say it's either 15 or $50 million, but it was a lot, called Solve, SOLVV.com. And what it is you and I would get on, we'll do a solve together. We should do this because it would be fun. We come up with a concept that's original to us on what problem we're thinking we're going to solve. And they've got a blockchain kind of a back end platform. It's basically one of these webinars, right? And if anybody ever uses that content for any idea, we get a royalty on that in perpetuity, forever.
Wow.
Right?
Hmm.
Yes. I mean, I can think at least 20 ideas that I've given to my clients that I wish I had royalties on, right, for it up to now.
Yeah.
And so this is part of what it is, moving so fast that the only thing I'm trying to get our customers to understand and partners is like, look, carve off some money and run experiments. Pay some kid that you don't understand half the thing they're saying, right, to go experiment in these channels to create content for you, if it fits your target, if it fits your tribe.
Yeah.
That's the important thing, I think.
Well, you talk about content development,
Mm-hmm.
and as we think about social media and other things, I'd love to tell people about the approach that I used to write this book.
Okay.
So this book, I've got a blog. I've been blogging for many years,
Mm-hmm.
and I did a track on things that I know about book marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So when it came time to publish this book called Number One Bestseller, I just pulled those blog posts off my blog and compiled them together into a series of articles that are about this book. And then
Yep.
at the very end, I created a resource checklist where people can look at all the different ideas that I talk about and then
Mm-hmm.
evaluate them statistically about which one's going to work for their book launch. Okay.
Yep.
So this is the only kind of new, fresh content that I did for the book, but it was all existing. So I was able to write this book without breaking a sweat. But think about it. If you can write a book and get a free pass to the media, if you can use your writing time to populate your blog for search engine optimization or SEO purposes, you're actually killing two birds with one stone.
Well, yeah, and not only that, I think it's not only that, it's understanding how much IP is already being passed back and forth between you and your customers to create the book. There's a lot of people. I get the first objection I get is, we don't have a blog, so I don't know how I would compile and get that out there. And my response to that is like, take every question your customers ask you about your space and answer it with 5 more minutes of thinking about how you could answer this for everybody,
Yeah.
right? Maybe 10, maybe 10. And you've had every objection you've had for why to buy from you. You've taken the time to write something very, very well thought out, right? And the only thing you need to do is just take that one step further, right? And write it out so you were talking to your entire space in your industry.
Yeah.
And if you do that 100 times and you meet with somebody like you've got a book.
Yeah.
Like it's 6 months, you've got a book. The other thing you can do, which is, God forbid, a service you guys provide, is you can get asked those questions, answer them, and have a ghostwriter come back to you and hand you one.
Right.
Right? And
Right.
it's like this is not an excuse. If you are,
Mhm.
if you have to be a key thought leader in your industry, and I'm just going to tie this back to part of our conversation. If you're trying to pull people back from Amazon to buy from your spot, right? Because you're trying to establish that value and you're trying to make sure that people understand what makes you different. You're trying to make that position, then you've got to commit to creating a content strategy because that's where people are going to end up going. They're
Yeah.
going to go to the people that have the better looking, feeling, reading stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Well, in fact, just this week, I was talking to a woman who's a first-time author. She has not written a book before.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to meet me down in Puerto Vallarta with my wife and her husband, and
Mm-hmm.
we're going to do a 2-day writing retreat. We
Mm-hmm.
call it the Draft a Book Experience, where we've got a systematic process for doing rapid product development. And we're
Mm-hmm.
going to do it somewhere nice.
Mm-hmm.
So for her, it's kind of like a vacation, doing a writing retreat. And you think about this. We actually had a CTO for the largest hospital in Texas fly to Seattle for his writing retreat, and he sat down and he said, "Oh my gosh," he goes, "This is just like I feel like Matthew McConaughey. Did you see that movie where he was an author and he went on his writing retreat? I mean, it's
Yeah.
actually it's a really
Well, look, I
aspirational."
would argue you're changing the experience, right? You're making an experience for your clients.
Yeah,
You're designing that experience, and that's why that you're getting more people engaged to do that, right? I mean,
yeah,
so that I mean, kind of a good way to kind of wrap the show. But I got one last question for you, Bryan. As we're thinking about where your space is going to go, what are the signals that scare you? And what are the signals that get you excited?
yeah. Okay. Well, what scares me? So I came early career from the silver halide photography industry. I worked for a company called Eastman Kodak. You've probably
Hmm.
never heard of it, right? I'm
Hmm.
kidding.
Yeah, yeah,
But a lot of people today, millennials on down, probably never have heard of Eastman Kodak.
right.
And it was a big company that got decimated by
Hmm.
the mobile device. I mean, that
Hmm.
basically killed them.
Hmm.
And I was the guy that was responsible for defending silver halide photography from the onslaught of digital photography, and it was a very
Hmm.
difficult job.
Yeah,
And I did that up until Microsoft recruited me away. Right, so I got out before it got too crazy and moved to Seattle. That's where I live now.
yeah.
But I look at the book industry, right? And what's a book? Well, let's see. This is technology that was developed in 14, what was it, 1452? The year
Hmm.
1452.
Hmm.
What's that, the Renaissance?
Yeah,
Where they take cardboard and sheets of paper and ink with glue on the spine. I mean, that's what this widget is, right? So when I look at threats and I'm making 61% of my revenue off this widget, this keeps me up at night, right?
yeah,
Because I'm dealing with a widget that is that's pretty dated.
yeah.
And by the same token, the two other widgets that I mentioned earlier, the ebook derivative and the audiobook derivative, are both controlled by a monopoly. The sales of those products are both controlled by a monopoly, right?
Hmm.
So my opportunity to get in front of that, it's over. I mean, it's been over for a decade at least.
Hmm.
So where does that leave a book publisher to innovate?
Well, I mean, good question. I know you're obsessed with this. Where's the signal that gets you excited?
Yeah. So what we're doing today I've got a team working on a machine learning initiative, and we're pulling in some AI tools and some machine learning tools to be smarter about some of the things that we talked about earlier.
Hmm.
So I talked about the importance of SEO, or search engine optimization, on Amazon, right? So with a machine learning tool that's looking through manuscripts and it's looking through social media posts,
Yep.
we can pull out some pretty clever combinations of keywords. So that's where my investments are right now. I
Well,
mean,
and I would tell you, just to validate what you're saying. I mean, we're looking at a platform right now, because we've been ghostwriting for some of our clients for years, that writes ghost writes blogs.
oh yeah,
Um, Machine learning can do that right now. Does it well. If you understand how Google's algorithm still works, even though it's changed a lot, I mean, those that post more earn more, right? The self earned, and now earned media is getting tougher and tougher because there's more money driving the money side, but consistently publishing is always going to be at the forefront of the best experience if it's good content, right? So there's a big if. Now, the flip side of that, I don't see it being a huge leap for me to stick a machine learning bot on my email and kind of glean out my voice and understand my opinion on things and throw an agenda to me, or what a possible, maybe with an assisted person like you to help me figure out what my book is and digitize that book in short order, right?
yeah,
And all the whole publishing thing could be digital. I
yeah,
see that happening.
yeah. Well, it's interesting. I just hired my first artificial intelligence
Hmm.
to narrate an audiobook.
Yo, wow, awesome.
So now that's coming as well. So those are the types of things. I mean, I'm literally sitting in an audiobook studio. I mean, if you were to look around, you'll see all the computers and the TV screens behind me. But
Hmm.
this room that I'm sitting in will be a boat anchor
Yeah,
very soon.
yeah,
My best guess.
yeah.
So yeah.
I agree. And you think about how we're consuming content today. The thing that I could see changing for you is how that is curated, right? Because you know right now I go to Audible and I select what I think I want, right? I go to it's rarely that we go to the bookstore anymore, but I might peruse and get something. The ability for search and anything that I've looked for to make recommendations that are smarter than me of what I need at that point. Machine learning has crossed the line of understanding what somebody wants before they want it.
Yeah.
And so that's what, that spooks me, scares me and excites me all at the same time. I don't know
Mm.
if you've ever done this, and we did this the other day, talked about cat food 3 times around Alexa. We kept repeating cat food, cat food, cat food. And I was getting ads for cat food within minutes on both my phone and my laptop, right? So and big brother that in any way you want to think about it. But so that's where that is. That's where these things. I think that where we see Big Brother now, we could start to see a concierge experience where we're getting coached and recommended based on what in it it sees about how we communicate and what we need, or what we've done in the past, right? And that's really going to take the sales out of selling, I think.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know what I mean? Which is really what everybody wants to do, anyways, right? We want to be of value to each other. So
Yeah.
that gets me excited. The Big Brother side of Alexa listening to us and serving us, that scares me.
Yeah, that is a little spooky.
So, what's the one last thing, right, that if you wanted our listeners to know or followers to know, what do you see the future of digital marketing and general content marketing in general? Where do you see it going?
Well, bum. All right. So I think we're going to be using a lot more automation. So, for instance, in our own business, madeforsuccess.com, we are using an AI tool to write our social media posts.
Mm,
Okay. So
yeah.
that's a big part of our very near future,
Yep.
where instead of hiring copywriters and, sitting there sweating the details, we're going to be taking uh, transcriptions of conversations.
Mhm.
We're going to be looking through that with an AI tool and come up with our social media post strategy
Mhm.
based on those type of things. So I see AI as a big game changer from a how we use content to do our marketing,
Mhm.
and how we can keep up with all the activities that are coming our way as CEOs.
Just to reiterate that it is in every long-term strategy we put together for our clients. Every single one, from the pool company. I was telling you that, like, we work with non-technical businesses, but we're talking about it with the pool company all the way to an HVAC, to the restaurant business.
Huh.
It is, and a lot of people don't understand how it's working in the background, but just, one of the things that we do is get everybody on a single source of truth about the customer, and giving it to an AI just to optimize for how they want to be communicated to, right? They've got 3 million files. We've got 7 different ways to communicate to them. Here's the way they want to be engaged. Here's how to optimize their experience. It's that simple, right? It can be that simple. And so, to your point, it has got to be part of your strategy, if you're going to be an organization today. Hey, Bryan, I appreciate you being on the show, man. Thanks so
Yeah,
much.
you betcha, Tony. This has been a great conversation. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me
All
on
right,
the
buddy.
show.